All right, buckle up, everybody, because today we are taking a deep dive into life lessons you can't avoid, essential truths for personal growth.
Ooh, I like that. A deep dive.
You know me, I like to get right to the heart of things, and today that means pulling out some seriously valuable insights for you, insights that you can actually use on your own personal growth journey.
Sounds like a plan.
What I find so cool about this particular source is it's full of these short, punchy statements, almost like,
Like a cheat sheet.
yes, a cheat sheet for life, success, relationships, the whole shebang.
I love that. Getting right to the essence. No fluff.
Exactly. And one of the first ones that really hit me was, a negative mind will never yield a positive life. Now, I know on the surface it sounds a bit like,
Like something you'd see on a motivational poster.
yeah, but I think there's some real depth to it when you dig a little deeper, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. It's not just about pretending everything's fine, ignoring the tough stuff. This is about understanding how profoundly our thoughts influence our outcomes.
Okay, so break that down for me.
Well, you've heard of the placebo effect, right?
Yeah.
In medicine.
Yeah, of course.
The same idea applies here. If we believe we can do something, we're far more likely to succeed.
So it's like our thoughts become a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Exactly. And the flip side is also true. If we're constantly feeding ourselves negativity, well, those thoughts become roadblocks on our path to growth.
I can see that.
Think about it. If you're convinced you're going to fail, you're probably not going to put in the work to succeed, right?
Right, it's like whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's say we buy into that. Our thoughts have power. It's easy to get stuck in these negative loops. How do we break free? How do we actually cultivate a more positive mindset?
Well, that's where the next statement comes in. The strongest muscle and your worst enemy is your mind. Train it wisely.
Ooh, I like that.
We've got to approach our mental fitness just like we would physical fitness.
You mean like hitting the mental gym?
Exactly. You wouldn't expect to just run a marathon.
Yeah.
Without training your body.
Yeah.
Same goes for our minds. We
Yeah.
need to build that mental resilience. Challenge the negative patterns.
Build a more positive outlook.
Yeah.
Got it. So what kind of mental workouts are we talking about?
Well, things like mindfulness and meditation are fantastic. They help to strengthen the mind.
I've heard a lot about those.
For mindfulness, think of it as becoming aware of your thoughts without judgment. So you notice those negative thoughts popping up, right? But instead of getting totally sucked in by them,
Do you just observe them?
exactly, you let them pass.
Okay. That sounds really difficult, though, to be honest, especially when those emotions are running high.
Oh, it definitely takes practice. But the more you do it, the better you become at catching those thought spirals before they take over.
And that's where meditation comes in.
Exactly. It helps you train your focus, redirect your attention.
Okay, so let's say we're building that positive mindset. This source also says, don't be pushed around by the fears in your mind. Be led by the dreams in your heart.
Powerful stuff.
It seems to suggest that action is just as important as mindset.
Absolutely. Mindset sets the stage. But action is what moves us forward. It's about aligning your actions with your aspirations, not letting fear call the shots.
Right. You know, it makes me think of this concept I was reading about, activation energy.
Tell me more.
The basic idea is that it takes a burst of energy to get going, to overcome that inertia, but then once you're in motion, it's easier to keep going.
I like that.
Kind of like pushing a heavy object. The initial shove is the hardest part.
But then it starts rolling in. Yes.
And I love how this source drives that point home with another really vivid image. Life is much like riding a bicycle. To maintain balance, you must keep moving forward.
That's such a great analogy.
Continuous momentum. Even when the steps are small, even when they're imperfect.
Forward motion is key.
Okay, gotta keep pedaling. But what happens when we inevitably hit those roadblocks? You know, when we feel stuck or unsure of which way to go.
Well, that's where this next bit of wisdom comes in. Waiting for change without action is like standing at a bus stop expecting a train.
Ooh, I like that.
You can't just passively wait for things to happen.
Yeah.
You've got to be proactive. Create the change you want to see.
So ditch the bus stop and hop on that bike. But where do we even begin? There are so many different paths we could take.
That's where the source's wisdom about relationships comes into play. It says, choose friends wisely as their influence shapes your path.
Yes. That makes you realize the people we surround ourselves with.
They have a huge impact on our choices, our behaviors, our overall trajectory.
This is true.
Think about it. Our friends can inspire us, support our goals, challenge us to grow,
But they can also.
hold us back, drain our energy, keep us stuck in those negative patterns.
So we're not just talking about picking friends who are fun to hang out with.
No, this is about consciously cultivating relationships that are going to help us flourish.
Relationships that support our growth.
And this source goes a step further. It says, true friends are revealed during hard times.
That's when you really know.
It's in those difficult moments that you see the difference
Between the surface level stuff?
and those deep, authentic connections that actually sustain us through the ups and downs.
It's like separating the wheat from the chaff, as they say.
Exactly.
Yes.
You'll find out who has your back when things get tough.
Okay, I love that. But what about those relationships that are actually holding us back? The ones that leave us feeling drained, depleted?
Well, that's where this next gem comes in. Let go of toxic relationships to make room for the right people.
It makes perfect sense when you put it like that, like decluttering your social circle.
Exactly. To create space for those healthier connections.
So sometimes letting go is actually the kindest thing we can do.
For ourselves.
Yeah.
And sometimes, even for the other person.
Okay. So we've talked about mindset, the power of action, the influence of our relationships. But there's another theme in this source that's really resonating with me. Embracing growth and imperfection.
Yes.
One of the lines that struck me was, success, however, is not about a seamless journey. It's about stumbling from failure to failure without losing enthusiasm.
Powerful stuff, right?
It really challenges that traditional, picture-perfect idea of success.
It does. It reminds us that growth is rarely linear. There will be setbacks, failures.
But the
key is to see those experiences as opportunities.
opportunities to learn and grow.
Exactly.
So it's not about never failing. It's about how we respond to those failures.
It's about developing resilience, that grit, that ability to bounce back, stronger after each setback.
Right.
And this ties in perfectly with another statement from the source. Embrace mistakes, they are proof you're trying.
I love that.
Instead of seeing mistakes as something to be ashamed of, we need to reframe them. Think of them as valuable feedback.
Right. Mistakes as data points.
Yes. Information to learn from, not the end of the world.
It reminds me of that Thomas Edison quote, I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work.
Perfect example.
But I think there's an even deeper message here. It's about accepting that life is inherently...
Messy.
Yes. Messy and imperfect. This source even says, life is imperfect, but that's what makes it beautiful.
Yes. Letting go of that need to control everything.
And embracing those imperfections, the quirks, the flaws, the unique experiences that shape us.
I think that's where true beauty lies.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground already. Mindset, action, relationships, embracing imperfection.
Yeah.
But honestly, it feels like we've only just scratched the surface.
We have, and there's so much more to uncover.
Before we dive into the next layer,
Yes.
I want to take a moment to reflect. What are some of the key takeaways that are really sticking with you so far?
For me, it's the interconnectedness of it all. These aren't just isolated ideas. They work together to create a life that's rich and meaningful.
Right. And it's not about reaching some final destination. It's about continuous growth, learning, evolving.
A journey, not a destination.
Exactly. There's always more to discover, more to explore. One quote from the source that's really been swirling in my mind is, when a man knows more than others, he often finds himself alone, isolated by the weight of his knowledge. Such a fascinating idea, how knowledge can be both empowering and isolating.
That's a good one. What are your thoughts on that?
Brilliant.
It reminds me of that idea that knowledge can be a double-edged sword.
How so?
Well, on one hand, it empowers us
right.
to understand the world, make better decisions, contribute to something larger than ourselves.
But like you said, it can also create this distance, especially if we let it inflate our ego.
Oh, absolutely. Suddenly, we're the know-it-all in the room.
Yeah.
And nobody likes that guy.
Nope.
It's a tricky balance, isn't it? Cultivating that humility alongside knowledge, remembering that.
Right.
We all have things to learn and things to teach. I think about some of those brilliant minds throughout history, the ones who really pushed the boundaries of what we know. But maybe they struggled to connect with people in everyday life.
And maybe that's the key. Finding ways to connect, to share that knowledge without making others feel less than.
I like that.
It's like being invited to a feast versus having someone shove food in your face.
Perfect analogy. And it brings us back to the importance of those relationships, choosing our companions wisely.
Right, like the source says.
Because they do influence us.
Yeah.
Profoundly.
Absolutely. It's about finding those friends who are excited to learn from you, but also willing to call you out when your ego gets a little out of control.
Yes. Accountability is so important. And remember, those true friendships, they're often forged in the fires of shared experience, joyful and challenging.
Ooh, I like that.
Think back to a time you went through something difficult. Who was there for you? Who really showed up?
Those are the people who matter.
And sometimes, to make room for those deeper connections,
Yeah.
we have to let go of the ones that are no longer serving us. The energy drainers, the ones that hold us back.
You know, it can be hard to do that, but
Yeah.
it's so worth it to create space for those truly supportive relationships.
The source is very clear on this.
Yeah.
Let go of toxic relationships to make room for the right people.
Mm.
It's an act of self-care. It allows us to cultivate relationships that nourish us.
It's like creating a beautiful garden. You've got to weed out the toxic plants so the healthy ones can flourish.
Love that analogy.
And speaking of growth, this source really encourages us to embrace imperfection,
Yeah.
learning from our mistakes, recognizing that those setbacks and failures.
They're just part of the journey.
You know, I used to be so hard on myself. I'd beat myself up over every little mistake.
I know that feeling.
Like it meant I wasn't good enough.
Yeah. But this source,
Yeah.
it challenges that whole way of thinking, doesn't it?
It does.
It reminds us, success is not about a seamless journey. It's about stumbling from failure to failure without losing enthusiasm.
It's about resilience.
It is. It's about developing that ability to bounce back and recognizing that often it's in those stumbles that we learn the most valuable lessons.
It's not about avoiding failure. It's about how we choose to respond to it.
Exactly. Do we let it define us? Or do we use it as fuel
Yeah.
to learn, to grow?
Like become stronger.
And remember what the source says.
Yeah.
Embrace mistakes. They're proof you're trying.
Right. Mistakes are just data points.
Yes. Not the final verdict. Just part of the process.
Part of the process of growth. And, you know, I think it's about accepting that inherent imperfection of life, striving for that picture-perfect ideal.
It's exhausting and usually leads to disappointment.
I think of social media, the pressure to present this curated, flawless version of ourselves.
Oh, it's so draining. We end up comparing ourselves to everyone else's highlight reel.
And it's just not real.
It's not. This source reminds us life is imperfect, but that's what makes it beautiful.
Right. Letting go of that need to control everything. Finding peace in the messiness, in the unpredictable nature of life. I love how this source is full of these little nuggets. Simple, yet profound. You know?
It's true. Sometimes those most powerful insights, they're the ones that seem obvious on the surface.
But then,
When you really think about them,
there's a whole other layer of meaning.
like that bicycle analogy we talked about earlier, life is much like riding a bicycle. To maintain balance, you must keep moving forward. We can't just wait around for things to happen,
You've got to take action.
even if it's imperfect, even if it's messy.
Forward momentum, remember.
And this source is so good at reminding us of those key principles. Like, the impossible becomes achievable once you start.
The power of activation energy.
Exactly. Overcoming that inertia.
You know, I always procrastinate cleaning my apartment.
Oh, tell me about it.
It feels so overwhelming. But then, once I actually start, I get into a groove.
And it's not so bad after all.
Sometimes even enjoyable.
And it all starts with that first step. One foot in front of the other.
But it's important to remember, we're not just along for the ride.
What do you mean?
We're not passive passengers. We have the power to choose our direction, set our intentions.
To create the life we desire.
Exactly. And that brings us right back to mindset.
Ah, yes. Full circle.
A negative mind will never yield a positive life. It all starts with recognizing the power of our thoughts.
They really do shape our reality, don't they?
If we're constantly focused on what's wrong, what's missing.
It's hard to see the good, the possibilities.
So how do we train our minds for that positivity? What are some practical things we can do to shift those negative patterns?
Mindfulness and meditation are key. They help us become more aware.
Aware of our thoughts.
Yes. We can observe them without judgment and then,
Make a choice.
yes, choose to shift our focus to something more constructive.
Creating space between our thoughts and our reactions so we can respond intentionally.
Instead of just reacting on autopilot.
You know, mindfulness has really helped me with that. I used to be so reactive, so caught up in my emotions. Now I'm able to step back a bit.
That's amazing. That's the power of practice.
It's a process.
Yeah.
Sure. And it's not always easy.
But so worth it.
Absolutely. And we can't forget about those limiting beliefs, the ones that hold us back.
Oh, yes. We have to challenge those, confront them.
Like the source says, Don't be pushed around by the fears in your mind. Be led by the dreams in your heart.
It's not about ignoring our fears. It's about choosing to focus on what we truly desire.
Choosing courage over comfort.
Yes. Taking action, even when it's scary, because often that's where growth lies.
Outside of our comfort zone.
Exactly. And that's where self-care comes in.
Self-care.
We need to take care of ourselves, physically, mentally, emotionally, in order to have the energy.
There's a resilience.
Yes, to pursue those dreams.
This source reminds us to cherish health, for it's a form of wealth.
We can't pour from an empty cup.
Right.
We need to make sure we're taking care of ourselves so that we can show up fully for ourselves and for others.
It makes me think about the importance of living authentically, being true to ourselves.
I think that's so important. It's easy to get caught up in trying to please others or fit into some mold that doesn't feel right. But true happiness comes from within.
And it starts with self-respect.
The source says, respect yourself above all.
Setting healthy boundaries, knowing our worth, choosing to surround ourselves with people who uplift us.
And remembering what works for one person might not work for another. It's about finding what truly nourishes you.
This source also talks a lot about living in the present moment, cherishing those moments.
Because they're fleeting.
Exactly. It says cherish each moment together because life will naturally separate you from friends over time. Sometimes I get so caught up in thinking about the future or dwelling on the past
that we forget to appreciate the present.
Exactly.
And that's where gratitude comes in.
Ooh, yeah.
Practicing gratitude for the small things. That cup of coffee in the morning, a beautiful sunset, a meaningful conversation with a friend.
It's the little thing.
Those little moments make life so rich.
So important. This source also reminds us to be prepared. Life throws curveballs.
It does.
Yeah.
But we don't have to be consumed by fear or worry.
The source says, hope for the best, but prepare for the worst.
Find that balance between optimism and realism. Be prepared for those challenges.
Yeah.
But don't let them paralyze you.
Trust in your ability to navigate whatever comes your way.
And remember, even in the darkest times, there's always hope.
Oh, I love that.
The source really emphasizes this. Forgive yourself for past mistakes you've grown since then. We all make mistakes. It's part of being human.
You do.
But holding on to that guilt and shame, it keeps us stuck.
Forgiveness is so important.
It's a gift to ourselves and to others.
The source says, seek wisdom over knowledge and growth over perfection.
True wisdom comes from experience, reflection, a willingness to learn from those mistakes.
It's not about being perfect.
No, it's about growth, evolution.
And using that knowledge to live a more meaningful and fulfilling life. Okay, I feel like my brain is overflowing with all these insights. This source really is a gold mine.
It is. Amazing how much practical wisdom is packed into these short, impactful statements.
And it reminds us that this journey of personal growth, it's ongoing. There's always more to learn, more to experience, more to become.
Absolutely, and that's the beauty of it. It's a lifelong adventure of self-discovery.
This source also encourages us to embrace the unknown. The impossible becomes achievable once you start.
Fortune favors the brave.
Right. It's a reminder to step outside of our comfort zone, take risks, trust in our resilience.
Uncertainty can be scary, but it's often where the greatest opportunities lie.
The source says, true wealth isn't about hoarding possessions, but about desiring less.
Contentment in simplicity. Prioritizing experiences over material possessions.
It's not about denying ourselves pleasure. It's about recognizing that. True fulfillment. It comes from experiences, connections, living in alignment with our values.
It reminds us that while wasted money can be earned back, missed moments are gone forever.
So true. Invest in experiences that bring joy, create memories. We also have the power to...
To what?
To make a difference in the world. Like the source says, be the change you want to see in the world.
Love that.
Even small acts of kindness can have a ripple effect.
Absolutely. Recognizing our interconnectedness.
Knowing that our actions, no matter how small, can make a difference.
I love how the source encourages us to live life with open eyes, ears, and heart.
To be present, to be curious, to be engaged.
And to be open to new perspectives, new ideas, new experiences.
We all mess up sometimes.
Right.
And when we do, the source reminds us to own it. Never ruin an apology with excuses.
It's about taking responsibility for our actions, acknowledging the impact they have on others, and making amends without trying to justify our behavior.
It's about building trust.
And forgiveness. Remember, forgiveness is a gift we give to ourselves as well as to others.
The source also encourages us to trust our gut, you know, follow your intuition and trust your inner guidance.
Sometimes that can be hard, though, can't it?
Especially when there's so much external noise, so much pressure
To conform, to follow the crowd.
Exactly.
But it's about tuning into that inner wisdom, weighing our options carefully, and then making decisions that feel aligned with our values, our long-term goals.
And sometimes that means slowing down.
Being patient.
Like the source says, direction matters more than speed.
Making sure we're headed in the right direction, even if it means taking a less conventional path.
It's about trusting the timing of our lives.
Exactly. The source says, don't make permanent decisions in moments of temporary emotion. Sometimes we need to step back, let things settle, and then make decisions from a place of clarity.
I think that's such an important reminder.
It is. It's easy to get swept away by those strong emotions.
And make impulsive choices that we later regret.
It's about finding that wisdom, that balance.
This source is like a wise friend offering guidance.
It is a gentle reminder that we have the power to create the life we desire.
One choice, one action, one thought at a time.
It's a beautiful reminder.
Speaking of intention, this source says something really interesting about silence. Learn to value silence. What you don't say matters just as much as what you do. What do you make of that?
That's a good one. I think in today's world where we're constantly bombarded with information and noise, it's so important to create that space for reflection, for listening to that inner voice, and for being mindful of the impact our words have on others.
Sometimes silence speaks volumes.
It does.
It's also crucial to stop comparing your journey to others. Focus on your growth.
Oh, yes. Comparison truly is the thief of joy.
It's about recognizing that everyone's journey is different.
And celebrating our own progress, no matter how small.
Right. It's not a competition.
It's about becoming the best versions of ourselves.
Yeah.
Not trying to keep up with someone else's highlight reel.
Exactly. And you know what? Sometimes we just need to be patient.
Oh, patience is so important.
The source says, patience reveals that everything you need will come at the right time. Trusting the timing of our lives. Recognizing that things unfold in ways we often can't predict or control.
Letting go of the need to force things. Surrendering to the flow.
This source is amazing. It's like a treasure trove of wisdom.
It is. It's incredible how these simple statements can spark so much reflection, so much insight.
It reminds us that this journey of personal growth, it's an adventure. It's full of ups and downs, twists and turns.
And endless possibilities.
And it's about embracing the unknown.
Trusting the process.
And constantly striving to become the best versions of ourselves. This source, it's like a guidebook for that journey, offering guidance, inspiration, and practical advice.
To help us navigate the challenges and embrace the opportunities.
And it's about recognizing that we have the power to create the life we desire.
One choice.
Yeah.
One action. One thought at a time.
This source encourages us to live each day like it's your last, because someday it will be.
Live with intention.
Pursue your passions.
Cherish those you love.
No regrets.
Life is a gift every day. A new opportunity.
This source, it's a treasure trove of wisdom. I'm constantly amazed.
Me too.
These simple statements, they can spark so much reflection.
It's a reminder that often those most profound truths, they're the simplest ones.
And that's what the source does so well. It connects us with that inner wisdom.
It encourages us to live with intention, to live with purpose.
And to give freely. Like the source says, give without expecting a return, and stop doubting yourself. It's a habit worth breaking.
Cultivating that spirit of generosity.
Towards others.
And towards ourselves.
Giving from a place of abundance.
Not scarcity.
And letting go of that self-doubt, trusting in our own capabilities.
We're all capable of achieving great things if we believe in ourselves and take consistent action.
And, you know, the more we explore the source, the more I'm struck by the interconnectedness of it all. It's not just about mindset or action or relationship. It's about how all those elements work together to create a life that's fulfilling, meaningful.
Aligned.
Yes. Aligned with our highest purpose.
It's a holistic process, this personal growth. It's about nurturing every aspect of ourselves.
Mind, body, and spirit.
To create that sense of balance.
It's a journey, not a destination.
And that's the beauty of it. Always more to learn, more to experience.
More to become. This source is like a roadmap for that journey. It provides guidance, inspiration,
Practical advice.
for navigating all the twists and turns along the way.
We have the power to create the life we desire.
One choice at a time, one action at a time, one thought at a time. And sometimes that means letting go.
Letting go.
The source reminds us, let go of toxic attachments, whether people or things.
Recognizing that sometimes
Ah,
the things we're clinging to the tightest
yeah.
are the very things that are holding us back.
It takes courage to let go of relationships, jobs, beliefs, even material possessions.
It can be painful.
It can be, but often it's necessary for growth, for transformation.
It opens up space for something new, something better.
You know, as we start wrapping up this part of our deep dive, there's one last quote from the source I want to share. It really got me thinking. When a man knows more than others, he often finds himself alone, isolated by the weight of his knowledge. What are your thoughts on that?
That's a powerful one. It speaks to that potential for knowledge, too. Both empower and isolate. On the one hand, knowledge can give us this sense of mastery, of understanding, of control.
It can feel like you're in this exclusive club.
Right.
No,
but
that-
it can also create this distance.
From other people.
Exactly. It's almost like the more you know,
Yeah.
the more you realize how much you don't know.
And that can be humbling.
It can. But it can also be lonely.
So how do we bridge that gap?
That's the question, isn't it? How do we share that knowledge without alienating others?
How do we use it to connect rather than separate?
I think it starts with humility, remembering that.
Yeah.
We're all on a journey. We all have things to learn and things to teach.
And maybe it's about recognizing that knowledge isn't meant to be hoarded.
Oh, I like that.
It's meant to be shared, to be used, to make a positive impact.
To build bridges, to
Yeah.
inspire, to uplift.
And maybe that's where true wisdom lies.
Tell me more.
It's not just about what we know. It's about how we use that knowledge to live a meaningful life, a fulfilling life.
A life of purpose.
Yes. It's about taking action, making a difference in the world.
And remembering. We're all connected.
This source has given us a lot to think about, a lot to chew on.
It has. It's a beautiful reminder that this journey of personal growth, it's ongoing.
There's always more to learn, more to experience.
More to become.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one last thought from the source. The strength to move mountains comes not from the body, but from the will. What do you think about that?
Wow. That's powerful. It speaks to that inner strength that resides within each of us.
It's about believing in ourselves, having the courage to pursue our dreams, even when it's hard.
Absolutely. True strength. It comes from within. It's about cultivating that resilient spirit, that unwavering belief, and that willingness to persevere no matter what.
So as you go out into the world today, remember the wisdom we've uncovered.
Embrace the journey.
Cultivate a positive mindset, take action, nurture those meaningful relationships, and never, ever underestimate the power of your own will.
Life is an incredible adventure,
Savor every moment.
and make it count.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and until next time, keep seeking, keep growing.
And keep living your truth.
We'll see you next time.